They called him the savior of mothers, but when he tried to save them, they laughed, ridiculed, and finally abandoned him. And in the end, he died in an asylum, screaming for help no one would give, the same way the women in his hospital had once screamed while dying from a disease he had already found a way to stop. Vienna, 1846. The air in the hospital stank of sweat, blood, and something far worse: fear. Young mothers clutched their swollen bellies, praying they would not be taken to the ward run by the doctors. Because there, women were dying, every day, every hour, from something the doctors called childbed fever. In the first clinic, where medical students and doctors practiced, the mortality rate was so high that some women would rather give birth on the streets, believing their chances of survival were better. And they were right. Ignaz Semmelweis was just another young doctor when he arrived in that nightmare. Soft-spoken, with intense eyes, he watched as women died in agony, fever devouring them after childbirth, their bodies bloated and decaying, their babies left motherless. The priest would walk through the halls, ringing bells, announcing death after death as if it was inevitable, as if it was God's will. But Semmelweis refused to believe that God would be so cruel. What was killing these women? No one knew. Some said miasma or bad air. Others blamed the mother's own sins. Semmelweis, however, saw something others didn't see. The death rates in the midwife's clinic right across the hall were a fraction of the doctor's ward. Why? The women were the same, the conditions were the same, but the hands delivering them were different. And then a tragedy gave him the clue. His friend, Jakob Kolechka, a pathologist, was accidentally cut by a student's scalpel during an autopsy. Kolechka developed the same fever, the same bloating, the same agonizing death that the women had suffered. Semmelweis's mind was on fire. Could it be that something from the corpses, something invisible, was being carried by the doctors from the dead to the living? It was a horrifying thought, because every day, doctors performed autopsies in the morning and delivered babies in the afternoon with nothing but a quick rinse of their hands in cold water in between. Semmelweis ordered the doctors to wash their hands with chlorinated lime before touching a patient. The doctors scoffed, rolling their eyes, muttering that this young Hungarian was wasting their time with soap and water. They saw it as beneath their dignity to wash like common laborers. But Semmelweis insisted, standing at the door, enforcing the rule. The results were immediate. Death rates fell from over 10% to less than 1%. Mothers were no longer dying. The screaming in the halls stopped. Babies were placed in their mother's arms, and the death bell fell silent. You would think Semmelweis would be celebrated as a hero. But the world doesn't always reward those who are right. The senior doctors felt insulted by the suggestion that they, gentlemen of medicine, could be the killers of the women they were trying to save. Semmelweis's colleagues argued that washing hands was impractical, unnecessary, even superstitious. They demanded proof they could see, but Semmelweis could not give them a microscope slide showing the invisible killers. Bacteria had not yet been discovered. His lectures turned into shouting matches. His papers were rejected. His superior, Johann Klein, dismissed him from the hospital. Semmelweis returned to Hungary, continuing to fight, continuing to demand that doctors wash their hands, continuing to watch as the medical establishment turned their backs on him. He wrote open letters accusing his colleagues of murder. His writing became angry, bitter, desperate. He could not understand why they would not listen, why they would let women die when a simple wash could save them. He spiraled. His behavior became erratic. His friends and family grew concerned. In 1865, he was tricked into entering an asylum. When he realized where he was, he tried to escape. The guards beat him so severely that he developed an infection. And there, in that dark place, Semmelweis died. abandoned, at just 47 years old. Years later, Louis Pasteur would discover bacteria. Joseph Lister would introduce antiseptic surgery. The world would finally understand what Semmelweis had seen with only his eyes, his mind, and his compassion. They would call him a pioneer of antiseptic procedures, the father of infection control, the savior of mothers. But he would never know. Imagine knowing how to save lives, seeing the proof with your own eyes, and watching people turn away. Imagine the rage, the helplessness, the isolation of a man who was right before his time, allowed him to be right. Today, when you walk into a hospital and see a doctor washing their hands, when you see the routine scrub before surgery, when you see a mother survive childbirth because infection was prevented, you are seeing the ghost of Ignaz Semmelweis. Semmelweis's struggle is a story of the difficulties of challenging the status quo and the sacrifices that he has made for patient care. He was a man who gave his sanity, his career, and his life for a truth the world wasn't ready to hear.